Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Thursday, October 7th, 2021. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered in my 47 years of doing therapy. These tools are available absolutely free at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the Start Here link in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of that book contains a narrative description of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. It's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 17 years to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and also turn any negative emotional experience into part of the infallible guidance system that each one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's completely free. Simple PDF file. Click it, download it, print it off, and use it as often as you'd like. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through the worksheet process or given powerful testimonials about how the use of these tools has improved their life. You can also go to your app store and type in the 3 words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness and get access to a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet, an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do that soon and often because it will improve their life and because it frequently leads to comments or questions or testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, give us a call at 563-999-3581 and press 1. Alternatively, you can send an email to me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org or to Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org, whyagain.org. We're also doing the Course in Miracles workbook lessons this year. Today is the 280th day of the year. Today's lesson reads simply, what limits can I lay upon creation's offspring? When the Creator created something, it's limitless and it is free. I can invent imprisonment for that person, myself or someone else, but only in illusions and not in truth. No thought of the Creator has ever left the Creator's mind, and no thought of the Creator is limited at all. Thought of Creator is but forever pure. Could I possibly lay limits on the Son of creation, whose Father willed that he be limitless and like himself freedom and in love? No, I can't. And so today, let me give honor to your offspring. For this alone I find the way to you. This is the way I find to you. Father, I lay no limits on the Son that you love and you created as limitless. The honor that I give to him is yours, and what is yours belongs to me as well. And the Course in Miracles experiment by Pam Grout, Lesson 280, is titled, It's Right on Your Tail. She quotes Kabir as saying, are you looking for me? I am in the next seat. My shoulder is against yours. Pam writes, after surviving a brutal car accident that ruins his hands, brilliant neurosurgeon Dr. Strange, played by Benedict Cumberbatch in the 2016 movie, he goes looking for truth, for answers, and for wisdom. In his search, he is followed by a strange figure in a dark hoodie. It's all we, the audience, can do to keep from yelling you. It's right behind you. It's been following you the whole time. And that's exactly what Lesson 280 is trying to tell me. What I am seeking has been there the whole time. I don't have to jump through hoops. I don't have to knock myself out. I just have to stop. Limitless freedom, peace, and joy is literally tailing me. Its shoulder is against mine. It is sitting in the next seat. So today I stop. I use this moment, this very moment, to experience the divine. So that's our shorter than usual Course in Miracles workbook lesson and the Pam Grout commentary, and we've got about 52 minutes to entertain your comments, your questions, your answers, your testimonials. Our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And if you call that number and press 1, it'll put a little question mark by your phone number, and I'll announce you by your area code, and we can have a conversation. What's on your mind? What would be of use for you to spend this day? I was doing some listening and reading with the Awareness book by Anthony DeMello this morning, and in the beginning of that book he starts talking about how we are brainwashed, and we don't even realize it, how we are conditioned to our beliefs. And he has some rather humorous ways to point this out. He tells a story of this one woman walking down the street, and she bumps into an old friend, and she says, "Henry, how you've changed. You were so tall, and you've grown so short. You were so well built, and you've grown so thin. You were so fair, and you've become so dark. What happened to you?" And Henry says, "I'm not Henry, I'm John." And the woman says, "Oh, you changed your name too." And the point is, when you've got somebody that's stuck in their belief and their conditioning, you might as well stop talking to them, because they aren't going to change. They aren't open for input. They aren't willing to learn something new. They know what they know. And whether we understand it or not, almost every one of us begins our spiritual path in that very same way. We are convinced that we know what's right, what's wrong, who should do this, who should do that. I had experience with someone in my office since the last internet show, and she was quite agitated because she'd really put herself out. She'd really gone the extra mile to help some family members, and she traveled several states over to get there to help them. And when she got there, it was just, the house was a mess. And one of the parents from the household was in the hospital, and the other one was completely overwhelmed and sick and probably should have been in the hospital. And there's a child that's special needs, very special needs child, and the house wasn't clean, and she just went on and on and on about how much upset she was generating in her mind because other family members weren't helping, and because this family lived in the level of lack of cleanliness that she perceived, and it brought me to the point of recommending for her Pierre Pradervan's work, The Gentle Art of Blessing, because here she is, coming from the most loving, positive space she knows how to come from, and yet she's generating a tremendous amount of negativity and upset in her mind. Here she is, a week or 2 weeks from returning from doing this good deed and spending a week with this family, and she's still generating a tremendous amount of negative thoughts and upset, and she thinks it's about them, and she thinks it's about the way they live, and her mind is telling her in no uncertain terms that she knows how they should change their life, what they should do differently, how they should clean, how they should spend their time, their money, etc., do their own health care, etc. And it was interesting that because she was so willing to look at this, to slow down and to understand that there are probably aspects of her life that someone else looking at it from the outside might say, well, this is wrong, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't eat that, you shouldn't do that activity, you shouldn't spend your money on that. And she wouldn't want them telling her how to live her life. That's one category of observation we can make. The other category of observation we can make is, how does she feel when she sits in the judgment? How intense is the negative emotional state she generates when she knows they're doing it wrong and she knows how they should do it right, and she thinks she's upset because of how they're living their life, when in actuality, she's upset because she's generating the upset. She's upset because she's choosing an interpretation of judgment and blame. And she's looking through the filter of shoulds, and she's looking through a filter of separation rather than true perception. So we're literally brainwashed. We're literally conditioned to believe that we know not only, what's best for us, but how other people should live. And we are trained into the judgment, the right, the wrong, the good, the bad. And our mind, this pattern of thought that we're trained into, will just kick in, just like any autopilot on any good fighter jet or commercial airliner. And once that happens, unless we are able to step back and observe, unless we're willing to take it off autopilot and use our direct observation in the moment to assess where we are and where we're headed, unless we're willing to do that, we stay stuck in that autopilot response, which for most of us is highly negative and detrimental at levels that most of us never slow down to take a look at and understand. This work is geared specifically for that. The primary step one tool in this work is learn to monitor my own internal state of emotional status. Upset, relaxation, gratitude, tension, appreciation, joy, contentment. Learn to assess that day in and day out. Learn to live more in the moment where I'm aware of that, where I'm aware of my breath, where I'm aware of the physical energy system we call a body, when I'm aware of tension within my muscular system, because that's where the true early warnings are for my alarm system. So step one in this work is learning to truly engage in that present moment awareness and observation. Step two is anytime I notice that I'm having a tension or a negative emotion, that I take a breath and turn the focus inside myself, that I deny the conditioning of my family and culture, which says I'm only upset because of someone or something outside of me. Turn the focus inside myself, breathe and soften, and start to observe and ask, how am I creating this tension, this resistance, this negative emotion? And if I'm willing to do that, the third step is I pick up a tool. I keep my breath moving and I reach for a tool. I observe directly over and over again that it's a flaw in my thought process which is creating my negative emotion, and therefore applying my thought process to the situation is not going to bring me relief or resolution. So I use a tool that steps me through a process that helps me observe directly what I'm doing with my thoughts that's counterproductive and what my thoughts are telling me needs to happen. And then I cancel all of that and just ask to be shown something else, something more productive, something that has the potential to actually shift my situation in a good way. Something that can give me an outside-the-box perspective, because the only perspective my thought process is going to give me is the same one that created the pain, the fear, the sadness, or the contraction and resistance which brought me to a halt in the first place. It is exceedingly easier to demonstrate this with an example. So if you've got an example of a stressor in your life or a negative emotional state or tension or resistance to a current life situation or a recent one, give us a call and share with us. What is it that you use to generate the upset in your life? 563-999-3581. If you call that number and press 1, we'll have a conversation. What's on your mind? What is it that you've been working with, or how have you been applying the tools in your life recently? I had the pleasure of interviewing Richard Moss yesterday, and I'm not having any luck currently getting that audio uploaded to Blog Talk Radio. So I may or may not be able to play the interview tomorrow of the Richard Moss interview, the audio of the interview. Tomorrow I will not be here in person because I will be doing the Integrative Mental Health Summit, which runs Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it's been it's hosted by Journey Stream, the not-for-profit that's working to try and help rewrite the narrative on mental health in this culture, to a new one in which mental health, optimal health and well-being is possible and expected, and to a position in which optimal health and well-being is the outcome for mental health challenges, and that mental health challenges can become transformational as opposed to tragic, the way they are for most people today. And they're tragic for a variety of reasons, including how the conventional approach to interacting with mental health challenges has evolved in our culture. That conventional approach these days is, here's a list of symptoms, and you run into or you go to a professional, and he or she looks at a list of symptoms and then looks at a drug chart and says, well, when you have these symptoms, here's the pill you should take. And many, 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 many people have discovered that is not a very productive way to deal with the complexities of the human mind, heart, and spirit, and that is not the best way to assist somebody through a mental health challenge. So if you want some options, some ideas, some new perspectives on how to deal with mental health challenges, tune in to the Integrative Mental Health Summit, which begins tomorrow and runs Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, October 8th, 9th, and 10th, 2021. You can find the information at that at integrativementalhealthsummit.org. And today's a Thursday, so that means today we've got a support group. It's available online, absolutely free. Anybody who's got an internet connection can join us on Zoom, or you can actually call in through your phone. All of the information about how to connect with us for the Mindshifter support group tonight, it runs from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central. All that information is available at mindshiftersacademy.org website. And we'd love to have you join us and or pass the information along to somebody you think might benefit. We had a rather intense session on Tuesday, and that's always a possibility, even when there are just 1, 2, 3, 4 people on the call. It can get quite intense and beneficial as people are processing and applying the tools and or doing this basic process of observing, opening themselves to questioning. What have I been taught in my life? What has the conventional wisdom given me that's helped me get stuck in a pattern of negativity and frustration and judgment, whether it's of self or others? And how might I change that conditioning? How might I learn to question that conditioning and step into a whole new life, basically because of stepping into observation? Live your life the way you would drive your car. Eyes wide open, scanning the environment, observing what's there. You wouldn't think of coming to an intersection, regardless of the speed limit on the road, and thinking to yourself, well, the light is green and I have the right of way, so I'm just going to keep driving, even though there's a whole bunch of pedestrians in the crosswalk. Unless you're absolutely having a psychotic episode, you wouldn't even think of doing that. You don't have to ask yourself, what should I do in this situation? When you're observing, your eyes are open, the truth of life act on you, and your reaction, your response, your activity in response to the actuality of life will be clear, it will be focused, it will be effective and efficient. And just as that's true, when you're distracted, when you're not paying attention, when you're on autopilot, which basically is playing out the patterns you've downloaded from the first 6 or 8 years of your life, that's when you keep repeating patterns that are unproductive and wondering, why is this happening to me again? It's not a coincidence that that is the title of Dr. Rice's book. Why is this happening to me again? It's happening to me again because I'm trying to live my life based on what I know rather than what I can observe in the moment. It's happening to me again because I'm not willing to question everything I think I know and step into direct relationship with life each new present moment. One of the things that Anthony DeMello talks about near the beginning of his book is that no matter how much lip service human beings give to wanting something new, they really don't want what's new. And he points out quite clearly, it's not that you have a fear of the unknown. You can't have fear of the unknown. The way he puts it is, you have fear of losing the known. You have a fear of having to give up what you've gotten comfortable embracing, even if it is difficult or painful or abusive. If it's familiar, there's a part of your mind that says, well, I survived this the last 37 times I did it, the last 37 years of my life. So even though I don't like it, I can survive it. And that's a primary driving force in the way the automatic decision system operates. Just that very primitive, if I can survive it, I'm going to stick with it. If I know it, even though it's painful or abusive, but I have survived it for 37 years, I might as well stay with it because at least I know I'll be safe. And I'm not sure if I would be safe with something that I don't know. So oddly enough, we have a fear of losing what we know, even when the thing we know is painful or abusive. Guy Finley says a lot of people go out in search of what's new. And the weirdest thing is they go out with a picture in their mind of what they want. Now, to be clear, there's nothing wrong with having a picture in your mind about what you want and going for it. It's also important to recognize whatever you find when you have a picture in your mind and you go out looking for it, it is not new. It is what you have been programmed to desire and go searching for. This is why so often people get into these things about the law of attraction and they think, oh, this is great, I'm going to manifest this and manifest that. And they have no idea that they're enslaved by their conditioning because it's the world that tells them, well, a car is a really good way to get around, and a Mercedes is a really premium way to premium kind of car to have. And so they decide, okay, I'm going to go and manifest a Mercedes. But the problem is they have been conditioned into the entire mindset that they need the car, that it's the only way to get around, and that this is the kind of car they should want. So when I'm in that mindset and I have not awakened from the conditioning that has been poured into me from my family and my culture, then I can only desire to manifest those things that I've been conditioned, trained, brainwashed to want. And there are many people out there that think they are just living the good life and wild and free and doing it all on their own, and they've been conditioned by their culture and their family into what is good and what is not good, what is desirable and what is not desirable, how they should spend their energies and their monies and their efforts at accumulation and what they should accumulate and how often and how much. And the true spiritual work, that's why I talk about one of my favorite lines from Guy Finley, that there's nothing more practical than true spirituality. And the true spiritual work will have you wake up first. Come aware, come awake, before you decide who to follow and what to manifest and what skills to learn. Wake up. Understand how conditioned we are. See the false as the false, as Krishnamurti would call us to. See the false parading around as the truth. See all of the ways my mind might try to convince me that it's okay that I be abusive in this situation and that situation in order to change things for the better and then create this better society and then accumulate enough so that I can, I'll be generous with the poor after I make my first $7 million. And in the meantime, what I'm doing to accumulate that $7 million is not good for me, it's not good for my fellow man, it's not good for the environment. But once I get $7 billion, it's changing, $7 trillion, then I'll slow down. Then I'll make sure that what I do is environmentally safe. And the point of this work is that never happens. I can't live in the lie and eventually live along into truth. I can't hate my way into peace. I can't judge my way into loving. I can't resist my way into openness. So, the work we're engaged in is the work of awareness, the work of pursuing awareness through direct observation and observing and questioning everything, especially anything we've been taught. Taught by our family, taught by our culture, taught by our spiritual teacher. If you're not up for questioning everything that's being told to you, you're a prisoner. And some people use this to justify questioning even, directly observable things. Some people use that to justify ignoring actuality. All we're talking about is whatever I can do to get more direct contact with actuality. And the good news is, within my system, I've been given this guidance system and this alarm system, which will quickly and pretty much infallibly alert me when I'm not perceiving accurately. And it does that by letting me feel tension or resistance or any of the negative emotions or their stepchildren or any intensely negative thought. When that happens, that's actually my alarm system trying to wake me up to the fact that I am not perceiving accurately. I'm now off in some fantasy of distortion. I am now creating and or responding to an illusion. And if I hope to observe more directly, if I hope to make my situation better, I'm going to need to pause and recalibrate. I'm going to need to breathe and soften and cancel everything that's loaded in my mind consciously and ask for a different perspective, a new insight, a different position from which to look at this, a different interpretation for the very same data points. If I'm not willing to do that, if I'm not willing to engage a tool to assist me in doing that, I will continue to construct the prison that holds me and think it's being done to me. The good news is you are an infinitely powerful creator. The bad news is you don't know that, and you keep creating the things that you say you don't want and blaming it on people and things around you. So with blame, we hide our power. The power we're hiding is the power to create our experience of life in each new present moment. And we do that by what we choose to focus on. And with luck, I'll be able to figure out what the technological difficulty is, and you'll be able to hear Dr. Richard Moss talk about that very same process tomorrow in this show in the time slot that I would normally be live. Hopefully, I will be able to iron out the technical snafu that currently is not allowing me to upload that audio. But he makes exactly the same point. We create our suffering with our thoughts. We generate thoughts about the other person and things around us, about ourselves, about our past, and about our future. And then when we run those thoughts and treat them as true, we suffer. Is this Susan?
It is. Hi, Dr. Tim.
Hello.
Hello. I just got on the show. Sorry, I missed what I heard in the last 3 or 4 minutes. Was fantastic. I've got my grandson here now. He's downstairs. There's no way I can introduce him to the radio show directly at this point. He's not able to have any kind of structure introduced. But he was given, and this is my question coming up, he was given a diagnosis of mild autism. Now, nobody ever picked up on that. He's very high functioning. But it suddenly occurs to me that we need a different way to approach him. And he was I helped clean out his apartment yesterday, did most of it, and then he helped me after he was released from the hospital. And I was glad to have, I'm speaking softly because I think he's downstairs, and I found tons of evidence of LSD mushrooms, nicotine, vaping something, pot. And yeah, that's about it. And I threw everything away that I could find. Some of his belongings I didn't get to go through before he came, and there may be stuff in there. My question is, number one, do you know how the autistic person's brain responds to the drugs that I mentioned? And number two, he needs a therapist, but I have no idea whether there's a whole different approach for people with autistic thinking processes, whether there's a kind of therapy for them or what. Those are the questions.
Well, one of the things that some people do is they look for people that specialize in treating people who are on that spectrum.
Okay, and I haven't even looked that up. That makes sense.
And if for no other reason, then, there's a comfort in realizing that people who have the same challenges or traits can be highly functional.
Right.
So, if you have somebody who's been diagnosed as Asperger's, one of the things that is a hallmark of that is the obsessive-compulsive thought process. And there is a rigidity to the obsessive-compulsive thought process. There is a stubbornness. There is a perseverance. And so it often is beneficial to have somebody not just who's trained to deal with that, but who's had some of that experience themselves, simply because there's kind of a comfort and a bond. There's the book, Look Me in the Eye. And this is a book that was written by somebody who, very, very bright intellectually. But he was raised without anybody knowing or identifying and treating him for his autism.
Yeah.
Or Asperger's, whatever you want to call it, depending upon how you want to define that. And because he was so bright, because he was literally at the genius level for electrical engineering, he ended up making lots of money and having people keep him around, even though he had the social skills of a dead rat, right? He was not socially adept at all, but he was so bright that people kept him around because of his usefulness.
Right.
And then later in life, he literally genius formulations in electrical engineering. And later in life, he somebody mentioned to him, hey, you kind of sound like this book I read or this movie I saw or whatever. And so he started looking into it himself, and he discovered that he was on the spectrum. And then he said, well, I wonder if I can learn to get better at these social cues. And so he turned his intellectual functioning toward learning how to communicate better and cope with the demand for eye contact, etc. And he really, really improved. He didn't get to what you would call normal, but he really improved. And oddly enough, once he did that, he went back to look at some of his electrical engineering genius, explanations and wiring, and he couldn't understand his own work.
Oh, man,
there was a part
scary.
of his brain. Well, there was a part of his brain that was so focused on learning a different aspect of life and relating to people and communicating that he couldn't easily switch back to that, whatever it was that gave him such facility for electrical engineering. Now, the point of the story, I know that no matter what I say to you, it might generate fear because that's your favorite pain that you like to go to. But the point of the story was not to generate pain or fear in you, right? The point of the story is to understand the flexibility and that these things can be learned. Mm-hmm. And also that a lot of people go a long way into their life without having the understanding of what their needs are and their patterns of functioning are. Hmm. So, if you read a book like that, or if you read a book like Born on a Blue Day, or if you read some books by some of the people that are autistic and they write from their genius perspective after they've gotten to be an adult, whether it's Temple Grandin or whoever, that can give you some understanding of some of the ways people handle things differently. So some of those things are, many people who are on the spectrum are very concrete in their thinking. They're very literal, and they don't get sarcasm, and they don't get a lot of the humor that people use. And one of the wonderful examples was there's this a book written by a gentleman who had Asperger's syndrome, and he was smart enough to get along in life, and he actually got married. And the title of the book will come to me. It's a bit of an unusual title, but he was doing an interview once. And the interviewer asked him, so what have you learned about, relationships, and how have you made this work? And he said, well, we had a problem because if my wife would come home and she would say, I had a horrible time on my drive to and from work, and the traffic was so bad, and these people were driving like idiots, and I was just so stressed out. And he said, and I would just get out my laptop, and I would plot her 5 different ways to get to work to avoid those roads. And she would get so upset with me, and I wouldn't understand it. I'm just trying to help. And then she said to him, so, I'm not telling you this so that you solve all my problems. I just need you to listen. I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to, and he goes, that's a unique concept. And the interviewer said, well, so did that work for you? Did that help you? And he said, well, it works sometimes and it doesn't work at others. And the interviewer said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, not too long after that, I came home and my wife started to talk to me about how upset she was, that I leave my stuff here and I leave it there, and I don't do my dishes in the kitchen in a timely fashion, and I don't put my clothes in the hamper, and so I just said to her, well, that really sounds like a difficult situation, honey, and I got up and walked out, and it didn't go so well.
Yeah.
right?
brother.
Because he was so literal that he took that, here's what you should do. When I give you a problem, I don't want you to solve it. I just want you to listen to me. So he applied that across the board in places where there wasn't any nuance and there wasn't any recognition that in certain situations his wife was literally asking him to change his behavior.
Right.
And that's just one example. You know, there are the tendency to see things in black and white. There's the tendency to be very literal. There's the tendency towards obsessive compulsive thought patterns or traits that can become a disorder or a problem, or they can just be part of what those people use to stay very detail oriented and be very successful. I mean, as you might imagine, in the story of the gentleman from the book Look Me in the Eye, he needed his obsessive compulsive focus on detail to be able to do what he did with his electrical engineering and wiring diagrams and things like that. And yet,
wow,
what is my greatest strength will at times be my greatest weakness. What are my greatest assets will at times be my greatest liabilities. This is part of what we observe in our lives. And when I don't have the flexibility, which is another trait, that rigidity that goes along with the autism spectrum, then it tends to amplify my problems when I have problems, as well as it amplifies my strengths and my successes when I have those.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just
wow,
a little bit of, you need somebody, if you're going to have a therapist for someone like that, you need somebody who at least is well-read in that and or has dealt with those kinds of people before, if not somebody who's actually on the spectrum themselves and has worked to overcome it.
That's
to be
good.
functioning
I'm going to go online and explore. What, Dr. Tim? I missed
I
the
just
last
finished it by saying who has gone on to become a therapist.
Oh, I see. Right. Well, one of Jacob's fears is that if he changes, he won't be able to write music anymore. And that was the scary part of what you said about this engineer, is he couldn't understand his own genius after he improved. I certainly am not going to tell Jacob, partly because I just don't know what to make of his creativity, which has seemed to have taken a terrible nosedive after he started taking this LSD. He thought he was writing brilliant stuff, but it's really just almost unintelligible. And he's had to drop out of school.
That happens a lot. That happens a lot with people who do the mind-altering drugs. It is, and you were asking me about, what's the impact of that on somebody who's on the spectrum, and there is no good answer for that because it's individual to every person. It's not like there's, I know people who have taken many, 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 many trips with different drugs and hallucinogenic mushrooms, and they swear by it. Yeah. I also know people, and unfortunately I've had a whole series of them throughout my career. Fortunately, not very often, but every once in a while, I have somebody referred to me who just is not functioning well in the world, and they track it back to the first time or the one or two times that they did a hallucinogen.
That's scary, yeah, that's true.
And it's not something that can be predicted. Nobody knows who's going to have a bad trip or a good trip. Nobody knows who's going to have lasting effects. Just like if people get COVID and they have the long-haul COVID symptoms, nobody knows who's going to get that and who's just going to recover in a few weeks and be back to fairly normal.
Right.
But the idea is it's fairly clear based on what you're presenting that it's not an ally for him to use those hallucinogens because, as you just finished saying, he was writing music, and then when he started doing this stuff, his work is basically unintelligible.
Mm. Well, I hope the effects can wear off. He's 21. He's young. He has extreme anxiety, too, and social skills are terrible. So Tim and I are trying to offer him some structure to his day. He stayed up most of the night last night and told me he couldn't sleep at all, and he had promised to go for a walk, so we went for a walk, but he was in a terrible mood. And anyway, this is going to be a challenge, Dr. Tim.
Yes, it always is, and bless your heart for taking it on. How is your housemate?
She left yesterday or the day before, just when we learned that Jacob was being released from the hospital, which is a miracle and a godsend, because we thought she'd be with us for at least a month and maybe as much as a year. But they found her a place, and they packed her up, and we all packed her up, and she left, and I didn't have a chance to clean the place down there before Jake came, but we're sort of pitching in and getting it in shape. One of the things about Jake that is astounding to me, but probably exactly like autistic people, or some, is that he lives in complete physical chaos. Bags and boxes of clothes all crumpled up, some washed, some not. His roommate's mother cleaned the apartment, bless her, and put all Jacob's stuff in his room. And when I went in the room, which is a good-sized room, the stuff was piled as high as my chest. And so they had left so I could drag everything out, put things in categories, throw away a ton of stuff, some of it good, just because we didn't have room in the 2 cars we were going to be driving to get back here. But Jacob said to me at one point, "It makes me very anxious to live in this kind of a mess." And I said, "Well, let me help you get organized, and then we'll keep it up." And but now that he's here, his stuff is all over the place. And granted, he just got here, so I'm not going to say anything much. But in the next few days, I'm just hoping he'll allow me to kind of coax him into making his environment bearable. But for him, it might not affect him. But I look at it and I think a person who's living here is not very well. But that may be just my conclusion and have nothing to do with reality.
Well, I, as with always in this work, I just encourage people to monitor what they're doing with their own mind energy to create tension or sadness or fear or worry, and use whatever tool, whether it's Pierre Pradervan's Gentle Art of Blessing or the Michael Rice worksheets or EFT tapping, to dismantle the tension and the negative emotions as soon as you can, hopefully before acting, before speaking and acting, so that you have a chance to be in closer proximity to what's actually going on and seeing the truth of the other person and their nature and the truth of you and your nature, and let that truth be the thing that drives your action rather than your conclusion that, oh boy, that's scary, or oh boy, that's bad, or...
Right. That's good advice, Dr. Tim.
Just keep remembering, if you're going to be there for somebody, that it's most important. It's just like the oxygen mask in a plane. Put it on first. Put yours on first. All right. Before you go to help him live a healthier life, make sure you're in that space of compassion and love and appreciation and, routinely seeing others in their highest and best, and then choosing to cooperate only with that.
good.
Because when you're focusing on what the person isn't doing that you want them to do or what you think they should do, you are not as well or accurately focused on their strengths.
Right.
And their autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
And their ability to choose and, change their life, live their own life, etc.
Yeah, I know. I have this goal to help him feel better and to be healed. And the last time he lived with us, he lived in the basement, slept a good part of the day, stayed up all night, tried to do music. He was on his drugs then too, lived in chaos, came upstairs when he felt like it, ate a lot of junk food, and I just witnessed this and felt as if there was nothing I could do about it. And now he's back here, and I don't know how to balance the goal of wanting to help or heal or fix or whatever with the apparently destructive path he's on. Now, maybe there's the error right there, is I'm thinking it's destructive.
Well, the key in this work is, what are you feeling when you reach that conclusion? When you reach the conclusion that he's on a destructive path and you need to fix him, do you have a tension in your body or a negative emotion come up? And if so, there's your work. Before stepping into trying to fix him, right, then you've got what Yeshua would have called the blind leading the blind. Then you've got somebody who's in an absolute panic about what her grandson is doing in his life. And she, from that absolute panic, thinks he should have a better, healthier life where he's not living in chaos and he's not living in high anxiety. And so from her place of panic, she's going to judge that he shouldn't be in panic.
Right. All true.
So, bless your heart, bless his heart. We'll be sending loving thoughts and blessings to the entire family. I will thank you for the call and turn off your microphone so you can listen into the second hour. And remind us all that we come from love. We're made of this stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. And I'll welcome Jeannie Rice.
Thank you, Dr. Tim. Appreciate it. You have a good rest of the afternoon.
Thanks. I'll work on that. I'm in the process of trying to upload a file for tomorrow, since I will be doing this Integrative Mental Health Summit, integrativementalhealthsummit.org for the information on that. And I have not been having any luck so far today. I've uploaded the file twice, and it shows it's only 5 minutes long. So I will be working on that or something else for tomorrow's show.
Are you going to play for all 3 days, for Thursday and Friday?
Well, I don't need to play one for Thursday because we just finished Thursday's show.
Oh, this is Thursday.
Yep.
I haven't marked yesterday off the calendar. I don't know what day we are. Okay, thanks.
We are
on
today, and it's only one day. It's Friday. All right.
Okay.
Blessings.
Gotcha. Okay, bye-bye.